were talking about DRAGSTRIP 66, and our, you know, it's funny, all the touchstones that I'm pretty sure we're all going to share are the sort of misfits. Where do we fit in? You know, we have our heroes in these movies who said, you know what, being a freak is awesome, so be a freak. And that was sort of what inspired us. We really just wanted to create a club. We always felt that some of the more mainstream gay clubs, you know, it was top 40 music, it was attitude, it was all those things that when you go out, you don't feel welcome and you don't really feel a part of it. So we sort of said, let's do this monthly event that for the rest of us, I guess. And the music was always super eclectic. We would play, 1 minute we would play Prince, then we would play Cher, and then we would play Nancy Sinatra, and then Marilyn Manson. So the music was really a big driving part of why people, I think, responded to it. But the biggest part of what we realized is that, so every month had a different theme. And so the idea was, the theme was like your touchstone to dress and drag, to participate. And what we found out within about 6 months was that our audience was really the show. As much as we gave them a midnight show with a performance, and that was the other thing too, our rule was no lip syncing. We had it with, you know, Mariah Carey singers and Queen, and nothing against it, but we said what we want for our performers is to actually come up with a name, a persona, and a voice, whether it's a singing voice or your what you put out. So we would write, we would take pop music and turn them into parodies. I call my partner, Mr. Dan, the drag Weird Al Yankovic, because he was brilliant. He would completely rewrite all these songs that you know to fit the night or the theme. So what we would do, we noticed all these people dressing up, like amazing looks and stuff, so we had something called a promenade. So every month at about 12:20 after the show, every single person who was dressed up who wanted to walk on stage to get, you know, 30 seconds of a spotlight on them and have the crowd worship them or destroy them, they got that chance. So we found that it really was something that people responded to and felt like, wow, this is not just a club, this is sort of my home, and this is where I can, even though I'm not doing the club, it's my club. It's something I feel attached to. And so that was a big part of what motivated us to keep us doing it, and to keep offering people something unique in gay culture, but also we had a lot of straight people that loved the club because we always loved a mixed audience, even though it was identified as a gay club and as a drag club.
What about the lip syncing thing? Is lip syncing still an integral thing for you guys, or you?
I mean, yeah. I mean, well, for Westgay, there's been so many different queens who've performed so many different ways. We have, you know, fishy girls who sing Beyonce and dance really well and do a show like that, and then we have girls who sing live, like we have Joey Arias and
one of the great singers,
truly
one of the greatest. She did
our Christmas party. We always tried to do something really special for her. She was really incredible. La Femme Ladosha, who is a rapper, also drag queen. She performs pretty much anything I do, but including Westgay, and she's incredible. She raps live, and so many different kinds of performances. I think the thing is just all encompassing of what every kind of different drag is.
We do actually a mix. So, for example, like Drop Dead Gorgeous. The show opened with a Beyonce lip sync, actually, to Pretty Hurts by Malay Balenciaga, who was sort of the celebrity. She was playing Beyonce in the show, because I rewrite the show. So it was like the very old school drag, you know, fan in her hair, like flawless lip sync, you know. But when Jinx had her number, she played like a trailer park mom, and we had her sing live, and she did Wig in a Box from the Hedwig musical. So I'll write things that kind of are suited to people's strengths. So if I know that someone's a really great lip syncer and kind of conserve that flawless illusion, especially when it's an iconic performer like Beyonce, I'll want her to do that. Ben de la Creme is a great parody writer. So Ben de la Creme and I worked on Winner Takes It All parody. So Jinx actually sang Wig in a Box pretty much straightforward from the musical. It didn't need to be a parody. So we actually, in one show, might touch on all those different styles. You know, have a parody song that someone sings, have a Broadway song, have a, you know, lip sync. for me personally, like lip syncing at Tranny Shack was always more about performance art in a sense, and the actual song or whatever ended up becoming the catalyst for telling a story. So I always turned numbers into, yeah, like 3-act plays, you know, in 5 minutes or something, you know, where I'd, you know, rent a chainsaw and have the chainsaw taken off, and, you know, usually I did a lot of gore stuff in the early days. I was obsessed with horror movies and, you know, recreate. It was very Grand Guignol, my numbers. The audience usually got bloody and messy, and it was grunge drag. And then over the years, as Peaches became more of a persona, and I was kind of going on the road more and doing more, I tended to use actual songs that I sing. Sing, yeah. So, you know, I would co-write songs and work with musicians, and, you know, I have a hip-hop song, Peaches Christ is Gangsta. And I have a really goth industrial song called Idol Worship. I have like 20 songs, believe it or not, because it was easier for me to kind of use the character in the music than to always do these elaborate lip syncs. So it's really different for the personal queen, I think.
It raises the question, do you think that drag pretty much always lifts a party like that, or are there some instances when drag can be a drag?
I personally think, here's the thing, if you have a party going and there's no drag queens, it's pretty fucking boring. And what we always found is the drag element of our party is what made everybody talk to each other. It made everybody interact. Total strangers, you know. And the thing is, if you had a night of only drag, it wouldn't work, because you need the people out of drag to worship the drag, you know. And so that caused people to walk up. If it's just, oh my God, you look fabulous, conversation starts. You know, ice is broken. And we have people that met as total strangers 20 years ago and they're best friends today. So drag is, I think, really key to a nightlife scene, to create an energy. It creates so many things. It's a visual, it's an energy. And so I think it's really key.
Have you ever had like a downside to drag in your things?
I don't think so. I don't think I've ever really met a drag queen that I'm ever like, oh, I don't know about this. No, it's always a really exciting, amazing part of the night. And I think, to touch on what you're saying, I think what an amazing thing about a drag queen at a club or a party or any room is that they're the one person who I think can talk to everybody and every kind of person, if that makes sense. You know, you have like your hipster, you're like, you know, nerdy boy who's out trying to get crews or whatnot, and they're all not talking to one another. But I think that drag queen can bring everyone together. I think if there's if I see someone in my club and I want everyone to have so much fun and to interact, if I see someone on their phone or being a little antisocial, I'm always like, Lexi, who was just here a minute ago, who's one of my hosts at Westgay, I'm like, can you go talk to that person and get him off the phone, and she'll whip her hair in front of his face and, you know, do what she needs to do and flirt with him, and then, you know, the party's back. And I think it's, yeah, you need them. They're the glue.
I just love drag. Growing up in Maryland, I would sneak off into DC or Baltimore. That was the most fucking exciting thing. You know, Bill Clinton could have walked into the club and I would have been like, who cares? Look at her, you know? To me, that was way more exciting, interesting, adventurous. And if they were bitches, that was exciting because it was scary. You know, they scared me. I mean, I just, you know, to me, it's like a club with no drag. I mean, how square can you get, you know, for a gay club? Right. And of course, the queens know where they're welcome and where they're not. And we all talk. So, you know, if a club, and in San Francisco, you know, in some cities, DJs rule the nightlife scene, right? Especially in Europe and other places. In San Francisco, it's the queens. And so the club's identity is really connected to specifically certain drag queens. And so whether it's Tranny Shack or Mother or whatever it is, Cocktail Gate, like whatever, you really associate nightlife more with queens than DJs, which DJs might get, you know, upset hearing that, but they can't deny it. Drag is what sells, and that's why people show up, is for the queens. So it's a really interesting thing. To me, like I think the clubs that don't want drag there are kind of missing the boat. But, you know, a lot of times that's about gay sex and machismo, and, you know, the drag threatens that sort of the performative nature of masculinity, right? So we're I don't know, whatever, a leather bar who doesn't want drag. Okay, you know, that is drag.
Thank you.
You know, so it's like, you know, it's just a different kind of drag.
Right.
But it raises an interesting question, which is that in certain nightlife situations, I'm thinking back, you know, back in my day in the 80s in New York, places like the Pyramid Club and the Limelight, when the club kids were in their heyday, were not really gay clubs. They were very, very mixed. There were lots of women there and lots of straight guys there, but there was a huge drag element, and you really felt that the women and the straight guys were coming for the drag element just as much as the gay guys were coming for the drag element. So it kind of raises the question, why isn't drag more popular these days in, or maybe it is, I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, in straight places? Why is it mostly the big gay parties and gay clubs? I mean, could you see today there being clubs that were totally mixed where drag would still be the central element to it?
I think, as much as it sucks to say it, that with the evolution of gay rights, we've seen sort of a watering down of interesting nightlife where you have sort of that club like the Limelight. Those sort of mega clubs are much harder. I mean, again, I don't think that they exist as much in New York anymore, the way they did. I mean, it was like you could go to the Limelight, the Tunnel. Like, I remember going out, you could hit 6 or 7 of these massive clubs with thousands of people on one night, you know, and that was, and that sort of, and same thing in San Francisco, south of Market, massive warehouse clubs, the rave scene, all of that. So nightlife in general has just changed, right? And I think partly too, in DC, for example, when I was going to tracks, well, everyone went there because if you were cool or alternative at all, that's where you went. Straight, gay, lesbian, leather, bears, drag, whatever. So now you've got bear bars, you've got leather bars, you've got lesbian bars, you've got this kind of bar, you got preppy bars, you know. So in a sense, sometimes with these things growing, there's kind of this downside in a way, I think, because it kind of split things up in a lot of ways. I don't know if I'm making sense, but it was kind of like at one time, when you have nothing, everyone interesting goes to that one thing, right? Yeah.
Well, we're also at the point, you know, when I started, if you were gay and you wanted to socialize, all you had was a nightclub. You didn't have
Grinder.
A mixer. Well, yeah, that's a whole other topic.
But it did affect things, right?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Did it really?
Oh yeah, Grinder and Scruff and all those things. I mean, as much as, you know, I'm all for it, but they totally affect nightlife, right?
Yeah, I mean, if people's main reason to go out is to have sex or to hook up.
Hello.
Yeah, no, I mean, not everybody does, but just saying. If people can get all that at home or in the palm of their hand, they're not going to spend a cover or whatever, or get dressed, get in the car, or take the train and go out. They're gonna stay at home, and that really has affected nightlife. Period. Straight and gay, I think. Although we kind of do have the market cornered on more of the hookup apps than the straights do, but yeah, it's absolutely changed. But I think it is part of a bigger thing about what I was saying at the beginning, is that, you know, we're at the point now with gay rights and acceptance and visibility. To socialize, we don't have to go to a bar or a club. We can socialize at the laundromat, or, you know, you name it. And so that's affected why people are communal now.
So does this up the ante for you guys in terms of putting on shows that draw people in? Is it harder now to get a big crowd? I mean, when I was doing this, it was all about the numbers. If you got 1,000 people, you did okay. If you got 1,500, that was great. Some nights you'd look at it, it was like 400 people. I mean, I'm talking about big, like the Limelight, the Palladium. Is it more difficult today? Do you have to work harder?
Yeah.
Get your drag on more?
I think for me, when I first started this, I thought it was going to be like a great DJ who people knew, who played great music, and all of our friends would be there, and that would be enough for people to come. Now I have to, you know, spend thousands of dollars to have, you know, Azalea Banks come or whatever, so people will not only enjoy her, but also know that there's going to be drag queens performing as well, so they're going to be there for that. Like, I have to fill the room for the venue and the people who own the venue. It's definitely gotten more difficult, and people just want a production. They just want everything all at once. It's not that simple anymore. Plus, I have a big room to fill. So, you know.
I just think too, we're a culture of distraction. Period.
Yeah.
You know, People can binge watch TV instead of going out. They can go to dinner instead of going out to a nightclub. I just think we have a lot more competition for people's time and their money.
And I actually think that the show, that Drag Race, is actually being in the business of celebrating cult things. It's interesting doing, you know, cult movies, but also realizing the show is still, it's not American Idol, and that's a good thing. You know, look at this. This is happening because it's a cult thing. You know, this is a cult experience, and these girls are cult heroes in a sense, and they have that kind of cult following that a Divine had or whatever, and I love it. I think it's so exciting. You see these kids coming and they're dressed as their favorite drag queen, and that's just amazing. And the show also has, like, Jinx and I do a Grey Garden show together, right? So it's because of Drag Race that so many new people are discovering Little Edie, you know, and it's because of the TV show that actually these young queer kids are figuring out, you know, who John Waters is because of, you know, the latest episode where they, you know, reenacted scenes from Female Trouble and Pink Flamingos. I mean, Pink Flamingos, you know, on national, a whole song about eating shit. That's amazing. I mean, that's transgressive. That's outrageous.
That's punk rock.
I mean, it's punk rock. I mean, and it's even more punk rock because it's in people's living rooms. People's grandmothers are watching that, you know? It's amazing.
You know, when you're talking about history, one thing that was true prior to RuPaul's Drag Race, and I'd be interested to know if it still is true at all, is that there used to be quite a large sort of blowback against drag queens from a couple of different levels. One was the kind of feminist analysis that drag queens are making fun of women. It's sort of like the feminist version of blackface, and that's all drag queens are just people that are just making fun of women, and therefore it's a bad thing and they should stop doing it. And there was also just the homophobic, you know, the masculine, you know, rejection of that, including in the gay community. I mean, you would always hear people after every gay pride parade say, oh, I looked at the front page of the newspaper yesterday and it was just a bunch of drag queens. They're making the community look terrible. You know, why can't they focus on just the average looking people? Is that still going on, or have we moved past that in your events?
It still goes on.
It still goes on.
I mean, for us, you know, when we started in '93, we soon became, you know, the packed club. Everybody was at this club, and we got the hottest guys. Darren, did we not get the hottest guys? And it took, but it took like 6 or 7 years for sort of a lot of the sort of West Hollywood crowd, you know, the kind of gym guys, whatever, to come, because they thought it was all drag queens. They thought, oh, why would I go there? There's no hot guys. So they finally started to come, and they're like, oh my God, like, look at how hot these guys are in this drag club. But I've had people say, similar to what you said, it's like, you know, I'm masculine gay, and, you know, no femmes, and all this bullshit. And, you know, I always say there are so many layers to what makes a gay person. And the sooner that the gay community celebrates all those layers and doesn't denigrate any of those layers, and especially in a social setting. And like you said, leather is drag, baby. You know, all these guys in their gear, they didn't wake up like that. You know, they spent time saying, I'm going to put on my drag. So this idea that, you know, your drag is insulting and less than because it's female, and my drag is more acceptable because it's masculine and male, I hate that, you know.
What I see happening is young people are changing that a lot.
Yeah.
My experience has been that's becoming a tired idea, and it's more of an old school idea. So I think it definitely still exists. We definitely see it in San Francisco for sure to some degree, but very rarely, and usually it's coming from older generations. Like if I'm hearing that, it's like you know, like a bitter older queen, you know, and it's like, you know, on both sides, you know, on both sides. And I teach at San Francisco Art Institute, and the students there will rock the beard, the masculine weightlifting and put on a fucking pair of heels and some lipstick and carry a purse. And it's like, what is that? Yeah. We didn't have that 20 years ago, but I love it. Like, you're giving me masculine and feminine, and it's all mushed up together. And they don't have the same constrictions where it's like, oh, you're a drag queen, well, I can laugh at you, but I'm not gonna fuck you, you know, or, you know, oh, you're a leather man, you must be real butch, you know. It's all mixed up, which I think is great, you know, and I think it's young people who are gonna push that, you know, push those tired ideas kind of out the window.
I think for me, for Westgay specifically, it's an anomaly in the sense that there's 3 different rooms, and there's a sidebar, and the main room where there's the stage. When I first walked into the venue, it's just a runway. So of course I was like, I need this venue. We have this runway. We need to make this happen. And after the guys are in the back room, you know, doing what they're doing in the back room, they're usually by 3 a.m., 3:30 on that runway, seshing, shantaing, after they just did their butch mask thing in the back.
Wait a minute, what are they doing in the back room? I haven't been to this party.
Yeah.
It's a sewing circle. They're knitting.
Know one another. Yeah, but they, you know, they all those boys. I think it is changing, because, you know, we're there in that space because we all know one another wants to do that. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
There's
But I think Paul would agree that in the early days too, most of the pushback that I got was from gay men.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Like, I actually, you know, straight men weren't threatened by it because it didn't represent them at all, and it was usually insecure gay guys that were the most awful towards us, you know, which was really hurtful. But I'm glad to say that that's definitely changing for sure, and I think stuff like the TV show helped. And if people really, you know, still are embarrassed by drag queens or don't want us to be part of their parade, it's like, well, you know, go ask Logo how it worked out for them. Yeah. You know, it's
go
like,
ask
you know,
Stonewall how it worked out for them.
Ask Stonewall how it worked out, because, you know, at the end of the day, it's like, I think we've proven we have a place here, and I think too with the sort of the older idea that we're misogynist in nature, and that we actually are making fun of women or hate women, that we've been around long enough now to know, and people have gotten to know us enough to know that we love women, and this isn't me purporting to be a woman. It's me expressing my feminine side and the female part of myself that is, I don't know women who look like this. You know? Well, a few, yeah. But in general.